situation. Remember back in February, Donald Trump had his governor's luncheon. He invited all these governors right after he signed this executive order that established only two genders. And he got the ire of Maine, or sort of, he's gotten Maine in his craw, because there was a post from Representative Laurel Libby of a trans student athlete on her legislative Facebook page, right? The post went viral. Trump saw it and singled out Maine because Maine does allow trans people to participate in sports. And he said this to her, and she spoke back where she said, "I'll see you in court."
Is the Maine here, the governor of Maine? Well, are you not going to comply with it?
I'm complying with state and federal laws.
We are the federal law. Well, you better do it. You better do it because you're not going to get any federal funding at all if you don't. And by the way, your population, even though it's somewhat liberal, although I did very well there, your population doesn't want men playing in women's sports. So you better comply because otherwise you're not getting any federal funding.
See you in court.
Every state, good. I'll see you in court. I look forward to that. That should be a real easy one.
Okay, so in fact, there was an attempt to rescind school lunches to the state of Maine after all of this happened, over specifically the trans inclusivity in sports. The Trump administration basically backed down. They weren't able to withhold school lunches. So that's why Janet Mills had this to say later on. This is last week about this victory.
Months ago, I stood in the White House, and when confronted by the President of the United States, I told him I'd see him in court. Well, I did see him in court, and we won. I am so pleased to say that Aaron Fry's able representation of the state of Maine has resulted in a binding agreement by the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Brooke Rollins and all of her staff, whereby they agree to refrain from freezing, terminating, or otherwise interfering with the state of Maine's access to USDA funds allocated to any official or agency or department of the state of Maine based on alleged violations of Title IX.
So this is huge. Like, I think it's huge. There's obviously more because Trump is still trying to sue the state of Maine for the violation of this, like, only two genders, interpretation of Title IX. But at least they can't withhold funding, which is what Trump is trying to do and what their sort of like anti-trans crusade has come to. Reminder, there are fewer than 10 trans people who publicly identify as trans who compete in the NCAA. 5 out of 510,000, 500,000 athletes. This is a non-issue. Last year, Democrats voted to, however, kill a transgender refuge bill protecting trans people fleeing unsafe states from prosecution. So the point is, Maine's not out of the woods. Like, the Democrats have actually fallen in line with some Republicans and are like, yeah, we're not going to be a refuge for trans people. This month, 2 new bills, one about trans sports in Title IX, along with 6 others more broadly about civil rights protections and gender affirming care were discussed. Basically, Republicans are trying to use Maine's time in the limelight to be like, yeah, we're the worst. We're going to keep on being the worst for trans people. But it's a start. Pam Bondi is excitedly saying, I don't care if it's 1 athlete. I don't care if it's 2. I don't care if it's 100. We're going to sue Maine over these policies, again, of including the imagined or real transgender infiltration of something they don't give a fuck about anyway, which is women and girls sports. River.
Well, how much time do you have, Francesca?
Right? Take it away.
I mean, I'm glad that they won. I'm glad that this mayor is doing, or I'm sorry, governor, pardon me.
Yeah.
Because it really is about protecting your constituents. It's really about the people who elected you. It's not about the small numbers. Like, I think we do have to keep these things in perspective, but ultimately, like, I think we have to continue to bang the drum that, like, these are people. Yeah. Like people are people and people have rights. Like, do we believe that all people have rights?
Yeah.
It's like, does one person have rights or does 100 people have rights? Like, that's what we're getting down to. And I personally believe, like, this is just my own belief system on Title IX, that it didn't go far enough, and we're now living in that. We're now living in the repercussions and the consequences of being willing as people to say, yeah, women are less than, actually.
Yeah.
We're not equal. We'll be separate, but equal. Like, it literally is separate but equal. And
Well,
so,
and on top of that, Title IX, the any complaints that anyone would lob and bring under Title IX protections for equal funding, with in terms of women in sports, that would go through the Department of Education, which is now currently being completely
Dismantled.
gutted. So it's just like, here we're having, again, it's all just this like imaginary conversation. But I
Yes.
totally agree with you that, like, and this is where I've stood on this issue, is like, I don't care if it's imagined or not. I stand with the ability for trans people to participate in sports, no matter what the level. I don't give a like that, because that's a human, that is a right.
Because do women have a right to participate in sports?
Right.
That's still up for debate at this point,
Sure.
because Title IX didn't say boys and girls play sports together. I'm so sorry.
Right.
You have to let them play sport. If they want to play with you, they get to play with you. But they were willing to say, okay, girls play softball, girls don't play football, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
Now look at a college football, whatever, their gym and all that stuff. Girls, trans or cisgender, don't have access to that.
Yeah.
They don't have access to that across the country. But then also, depending on your state, look at what those boys have versus the boys over here.
Sure.
So
Sure.
to me, you instead of Title IX just being willing to take whatever, you say, no, everybody gets equal funding. Everybody gets equal access to sports, because sports are a public good.
Yep.
They're not what a capitalistic society is turned them into, which is, you're good at it, you get to play. Everybody else, sit down.
Right. And anytime obviously the same people who bash trans people and trans athletes, anytime you talk about, equal pay, they're always like, well, it's not profitable to actually like watch women's soccer. So like they would get the Nike ads if it was profitable. And you're like, see, you are so bad faith about this. And you're totally right about like it's all just, like what's going to make you more money.
Right.
Meanwhile,
Which is funny that you said women's soccer, because that is the reason we even watch soccer in this country, is the women's national team from the 90s. But like, it's not, I mean, it's all smoke and mirrors to me, because the conversation is only about trans women. It's not about trans men.
Right.
I talk about this all the time on stage, and people laugh, and I'm like, why are you laughing? Oh, because you think women are not good at sports, because you think a trans man is technically a woman, and then you think a trans woman is technically a man, and none of it is true. We're just biologically people. We're not biologically anything other than people.
And the root of it is just like raging misogyny and transphobia.
Raging misogyny. Yeah. Because here's something that's real, something that's actual, is that a trans woman at the same age as a cisgender woman who has had gender affirmation surgery has less testosterone in her body than that cisgender woman does. So if you believe that testosterone gives you an advantage, trans women do not have that advantage that you think is true. I'm not saying that it does, but if you think that that's true, it's actually not true.
Right.
So it's none of this, but you and I both know that this is just an effective way to play political theater and to I mean, it's just a strongman fascist argument, to take away from people. We should be children,
exactly. Oh, and we're gonna suspend your school lunches over it. As Laverne Cox, who's been on the show a number of times, always talks about, when the permission structure that anti-trans legislation gives to taking away rights from all people. Like, look at what's happening in immigration. This is not about law-abiding, non-law abiding. This is not about criminals. This is about simply locking people up. What's going on, Frantifa? If you haven't already, subscribe to this channel right now. Hit that button. And also, you can become a patron and support the show every single week. Get access to bonus episodes and exclusive merchandise. Patreon.com/Bitchuation Room. Do